Shalom, back again with another lesson. Before we begin this lesson, I'd like to begin by giving all honor, glory, and praises unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Racha Kwadash. I give double honors to my elders and apostles of Great Millstone, where I've learned this truth from. I want to say peace and salutations to Akim, you brothers out there laboring, pushing this word out in all truth and in sincerity, presenting your bodies as a living sacrifice. We'll say shalom to you Israelite sisters that may be listening, and also to you Israelites that are scattered across the four corners of the earth. You may look like these other nations, but your seed line goes back to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, which is the chosen seed line. Shalom. So as time goes on in 2026, we find ourselves here again. More news, more events, more prophetic events taking place in the earth. The latest one being that America, aka the Edomite capital, Babylon, they're on the warpath. They're on the warpath. Towards the end of December, they were on the warpath by launching missiles into Nigeria. They also invaded Venezuela and kidnapped the president and his wife. They used weaponry that, nobody can confirm it to be 100% true, but, you can just imagine that the weaponry that was described, like, ultrasonic sound waves, causing people to, cough up blood, to have nosebleeds, to be incapacitated, like you can imagine that, these weapons exist, right? Especially with Esau Edom. Esau Edom was blessed, received a blessing, which you can read in the book of Genesis, chapter 27, 39 and 40, I believe, where it states that Esau's blessing was the sword. He would have the fatness of the earth and the dew of heaven, right? That's just roughly paraphrasing. But like Esau Edom was blessed with the sword, and now he's received the taste of blood, right? So Esau's got that taste of blood, and now he's flexing his muscles, or he's showing his teeth, right? He's showing his teeth, his fangs, because now he's threatening Greenland. He's threatening Greenland with an invasion. The recent article that was posted was that Donald Trump was, requesting that the War Cabinet draw up plans to invade Greenland.
The fact that they had a boat land there 500 years ago doesn't mean that they own the land. We are going to do something on Greenland, whether they like it or not, because if we don't do it, Russia or China will take over Greenland, and we're not going to have Russia or China as a neighbor. And by the way, I'm a fan of Denmark too, I have to tell you, and they've been very nice to me. I'm a big fan, but the fact that they had a boat land there 500 years ago doesn't mean that they own the land. I'm sure we had lots of boats go there also, but we need that. I would like to make a deal, the easy way, but if we don't do it the easy way, we're going to do it the hard way.
Now the powers that govern Greenland at the moment are not too happy and not too pleased with the things that Donald Trump has said. And Donald Trump, in his pride, has come out and basically said that he doesn't care. Like, it doesn't, the rules don't apply to him. He's governed by his morality or something to that effect, right? Like, that's the pride of these people. The pride of these Edomites is they can just take whatever they want. They feel that they can take it, although they don't understand or realize that the Lord's about to take all of it away from them, But before he does, prophecy has to play out, right? And this is what we're seeing on a global scale, right? So I'm going to read in the book of Matthew. I'm going to start in the book of Matthew, chapter 24. And I'm going to go to... I'm going to jump to the verse 6. It says, "And ye shall hear of wars, and rumors of wars. Are we not seeing that in the news today? Are we not seeing, the Venezuela? We're not seeing the war in Nigeria. We're not seeing the war in the so-called Middle East. Are we not seeing all these things take place in the earth today, right? And this is red letter, so Yahushua is speaking this, right? I'm going to continue on. It says, see that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. So although we're seeing these things happen, the end is not yet, because there's still certain prophecies that have to be fulfilled before the end can come. One of those prophecies is the micro-C-HIP, right? The MOTB. Now, if you've been watching the Israelites, you would understand the abbreviations, right? So the MOTB would be the mark of the beast, and the micro-C-HIP would be the chip, basically, the micro. But, sometimes you have to be cautious of the way you say things, because obviously, these are trigger words or keywords that the algorithm picks up. So if they hear you say them, they'll flag the video and they'll take it down, and the edification won't go out, right? So we use code words to try and explain what we're talking about in the scriptures without flagging up the algorithm and the key phrases or whatever, right? So I'll read that back. So this is Matthew 24:6. I'll start from the top. It says, and ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. Verse 7, for nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. Are we not seeing that happening in the world today? The Americas are rising up against Venezuela. The Americas are rising up against Greenland now, right? The Americas are speaking out against the nation of Iran. They're speaking out against all the countries in the Middle East. They went through and they were taking out all the countries. Saudi Arabia, they got Libya, they're going after Lebanon, Syria, and I think the final country that they needed to take down was Iran. But they couldn't do it before. But now their posture, since Trump's come into office, their posture is pointing towards Iran, right? Now we'll talk a little bit more about that in a few moments. But, this is what we're seeing in the scriptures, right? For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines. That hasn't happened, on a global scale yet. Now, it doesn't mean that there's no food or anything growing, but if you look at some of the stories behind the scene, you have all these elites, kill Bates, right? He's buying up all the farmland. Why? He's promoting genetically modified organisms, GMOs. He's basically talking about burying trees. Everything these people do, these elites, these Edomites do, is for destruction. It's to destroy the earth, so we can't be self-sufficient, right? Now, when it comes to famines, that could be a man-made famine. It may not be that there's no food anywhere. It could just be that they're hoarding it to themselves, right? You have to have that micro-C-HIP in order to purchase things, So if you don't have the micro-C-HIP, they'll control the population through the food, through the hunger, right? Because if everybody's hungry, trust me, there isn't a lot that people won't do when, their stomach is touching their back. You know what I'm saying? So as we continue on, it says, for nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in diverse places. We're seeing all of these things take place in the earth today. You even have people talking about, the new pandemic, right? Potentially getting ready to be released on the earth as well, right? Now, I'm not a doctor, so I'm not offering any medical advice or anything like that. But these are the rumors that are circling around, right? Now it says earthquakes in diverse places. So we've seen a lot of activity. When you look at the Ring of Fire, which is around the Pacific area, so California, to Russia, Alaska, all the way down, all the way around to Japan, right? So covering the Pacific Ocean. There's a lot of volcanic activity in that region, right? But we're also seeing earthquakes in very diverse places. There was one in New York, there was one in Thailand, there's one in the Philippines. I mean, the Philippines, you probably will see a lot of earthquakes there, but maybe not as far as Thailand, you know. There was a brief little tremor in the UK recently.
What on earth?
It's shaking. Look at the car.
Oh my
It's
God.
like an earthquake.
Has to be. It felt like an explosion.
3.3 it says. Silverdale.
In Lancashire? That's mad.
Oi, can you feel that? Yeah, everything just shook. Car alarms going off down the street.
Even aware of. I didn't feel any tremors, but apparently there was a little tiny tremor in the UK, in London, right? But again, it says there'll be earthquakes in diverse places. Verse 8 says, all these are the beginning of sorrow. So this is just the beginning, right? This is just the beginning. Now, when I mentioned to you before that we're in the spirit of war, we're in the spirit of war because that seems to be the main talking points on the news at this moment, right? When we look in the book of Ecclesiastes, right, chapter 3, it says, let's have a look. Man, my Bible app is tripping. Salakia, I just had to restart my phone because the app was displaying the wrong scriptures. That's Satan trying to throw off the lesson. But anyway, we get back to the point. So this is the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 3. I'm going to start at verse 1. It says, to everything there is a season and a time to every purpose under the heaven, right? So we understand the seasons. To give you an example, verse 2 says, a time to be born and a time to die. There's a season when people are born and there's a season when people die, right? It says a time to plant and a time to pluck up that which is planted, right? It says a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to break down and a time to build up. These are just some examples. You can keep reading, but the point that I want to reach is in verse 8, right? It says a time to love and a time to hate, a time of war and a time of peace, right? So the time that we're in now, the season we're in now, is the time of war. It's not time for peace. Peace comes when the kingdom comes, right? When Yahushua takes these elites, these wicked elites, these Edomites, takes them out of their power seats and binds the other nations into captivity, and then the kingdom, the kingdom is established, right? Is when the peace is going to come. But for now, it's a time of war. It says it's not a time for love, because obviously we can't love in this kingdom, because the love of many is waxing cold, right? It says, and a time to hate. It's definitely a time to hate. Look how ICE is moving in America right now with the immigrants. They don't really, have empathy towards people, if they're not American. So if they're not American citizens, or they don't even look like American citizens, there's no love there. I watched a video where there was an American citizen. He was an Issacharite. It's a so-called Mexican. It's Issacharite. And ICE came in and he was screaming at the top of his lung, he's an American citizen. Full on American accent, everything. He's an American citizen. And they abducted him, took him in the car, only to release him after beating him up. They beat him up. It was very difficult to watch, because obviously he was upset. He was very upset. And it's just yeah. And needless to say, You know, it's like these devils are going to get exactly what's coming to them. They, you know, like just having that in my mind, just seeing what I saw in that video. I don't have it. I didn't save it, but you know, just thinking of stuff like that. If the Lord willing, I'm part of the elect, I'd take vengeance on that dude for that dude. You know what I mean? I'd take vengeance on them Edomites, them ICE agents, for that Issacharite. Just because it offended me, right? But again, we're not in a time of love. We're in a time of hate. It's not a time of peace, but it is a time of war, right? So I'm going to read Ecclesiastes 3:8 again. It says, a time to love, a time to hate, and a time to hate, a time of war, and a time of peace. We're just not in that time right now for peace, right? So as we continue on, you know, we understand that America is, you know, positioning themselves right now to invade Greenland, which if they did that, that would be stupid because ideally they'd be, you know, invading one of their allies, which would trigger Article 5, and that would be the end of NATO and, you know, EU, which if that were to happen, right, because you can see like Greenland at the moment, they're, you know, speaking to the EU, right, the EU nations, and you have Britain, France, and a few other European nations talking about sending, you know, defense to Greenland, right, for as a defense against America. Now, when you think about how crazy that sounds, like America is also, like Donald Trump especially, has made a statement saying, you know, he doesn't need EU or the NATO, you know, EU or NATO, right? Because, you know, what did he say? He said, we don't need EU and NATO. NATO needs us. Something to that effect, he said, right? Which again is that pride showing forth through the Edomites, right? Which you could see a statement like that, right? You seeing how the allied nations, the EU and NATO, how they're sort of looking at America at the moment, right? Which would lead to the book of Revelation, chapter 17, right? And you look at Revelation 17, it's prophesied that the EU will turn against America. And this is something that you could see as to why. Like, yo, we're supposed to have a treaty together and you violated that? You invaded us? You know, America don't do anything without violence. Look what they did in Venezuela, right? They smelt the blood, they tasted the blood, and now they're blood hungry, they're bloodthirsty, right? So now they got their eyes set on Greenland, right? So I'm gonna read this. This is Revelation 17 and 16. Again, this is biblical prophecy. It says, and the 10 horns, which 10 horns is EU and NATO, says, and the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore. Who's the whore? Babylon, aka America, right? It says, and shall make her desolate and naked. It says, and shall eat her flesh. They'll all turn on her and burn her with fire. What do you think that means? That's them nukes. They're all gonna, you know, start firing on America. They're gonna start World War III, was gonna kick off, and they're all gonna turn on America and destroy America. That's what they're gonna do, because America's, you know, prophesied to be destroyed, right? And then obviously we understand that in the midst of them fighting, they're all gonna stop fighting each other, and they're gonna turn and then try and start fighting Yahweh Shai when he cracks that sky. And that's how we understand that, look, we're at the end of this thing. There's like only a few more prophecies that need to take place before, you know, the coming destruction. Obviously, the microchip, the mark of the beast, right? Then there's the you know, yeah, basically that. That's it. But yeah, you know, as we continue, so, you know, not to forget to mention that not only has America set its eyes on Greenland, they're now setting their eyes on Iran, right? Now, Russia is also, you know, making statements against, America, like how America's moving, right? A lot of countries have condemned how Trump, went into Venezuela and abducted President Maduro and his wife. Like a lot of countries spoke out against that. Russia, China, Iran, and now you got these European nations looking at America like, what are you doing? Why are you planning on invading your ally, right? So that's how you can see a lot of these prophetic events are taking place in the earth, because the Lord's put the spirit on America to start moving and speeding this thing up, right? So, you see, like, just to speak on Iran for a moment, because Iran right now is, they have uproars of the people, protests, and America's using it as an excuse to be able to go into Iran and bomb Iran and take Iran out, because obviously Iran is a problem in the so-called Middle East for the nation that seems to be running everything. They have a small little island or a small little piece of land in the so-called Middle East, the size of New Jersey. I have to be very careful with who I'm speaking on, but we all know the ones that generally cause a lot of the world's problems today. So those people in the land basically want Iran out of the picture, because Iran's a problem in that region. So now they're using these protests in Iran as a reason to go in and take them out of the picture. So, but people are aware of it, because obviously when you look at how the protest started, it's all based off America. The sanctions that America was putting on the Iranian people. They took out their nuclear program. You know what I mean? They do all these things. It's almost like the bully don't want a new bully to emerge, right? So Iran is like that new bully in that area, and they don't want that bully to emerge. So now they're using all kinds of trickery to cause destabilization in the region. And this is what the CIA do. This is what they're known for. Infiltrating governments, destabilizing the economy and the governments and the people, and then rising up against them, causing the people to rise up against the government, right? They did the same thing in Libya, with Gaddafi. If you look at, the situation there, right? Because obviously Gaddafi, Libya was a threat to America, right? So they did what they needed to do to take Gaddafi and Libya and put their own puppet government in place that's on side with America, right? And this is what they're trying to do in Iran. So as you sort of go through, right, you understand like the prophecies that are speaking. We understand that it's getting closer to that time, and what we're doing, as Israelites, what we be commanded to do is to just warn the people. That's all we can do. We can't convince you to do anything. You have to be convinced in your own mind that you want to serve the Lord. You want to be under the protection of the Lord, because this is the Lord's movie. The Lord is making these people act the way they're acting, to do the things that they're doing. And, if you're not under the covering of the Almighty, the Most High, Yahweh, and His Son, Yahweh Shai, then, you know what I mean? There's no hope for you. There's no hope for you, right? This is the book of Ezekiel, chapter 3, verse 17. It says, Son of man, I have made thee a watchman unto the house of Israel. Therefore, hear the word at my mouth, and give them warning from me. It's what we've been commanded to do as Israelites. All we're here to do is just give you the warning, to let you know that, we're close. We're really close. It's so close that I wouldn't be surprised if in the next year or so, this thing is over with. You know what I mean? Now, I don't know, because no man knoweth the time or the hour, right? Except the Heavenly Father. But again, it's like, we're close. Like you could feel it. It's like that song that is it Phil Collins? Yeah, it's for Phil Collins, right? You can feel it. You can literally feel it coming in the air, man. Like, it is right around the corner. So again, we have to warn our people. I'll continue reading. This is verse 18. It's Ezekiel 3:18. It says, when I say unto the wicked, thou shalt surely die, and thou givest him not warning, nor speakest to warn the wicked from his wicked way, to save his life. Right? So if we're not giving you the warning to let you know that this is around the corner, to save your life, we don't warn you. It says that same wicked man shall die in his iniquity, but his blood will I require at thine hand. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't want nobody's blood on my hands. If Lord has been gracious enough to give me the understanding to wake me up to the truth, hey, I'm going to shout it from the rooftop. I'm going to be doing these lessons. I'm going to be, hey, look, this is coming. This is what's coming. This is what's getting ready to happen. These are all the things that, that the scriptures say, and this is what we're seeing in these events today. Hey, repent, come back to the Lord, have faith, trust in the Lord, and seek him while he may be found, right? Because I don't want your blood on my hands, right? But verse 19, it says, yet, if thou warn the wicked, and he turn not from his wickedness, nor from his wicked way, he shall die in his iniquity, but thou hast delivered thy soul. So me giving you this warning, if you don't take heed to it, that's on you, right? I wouldn't advise it, but that's on you. You have to make up your own mind, right? You have to be convinced in your own mind. It's like but at the end of the day, you can't then turn around and say, well, I was never warned. I was never told, Lord. Because the Lord will say, well, actually, you were. You were. So I pray that this lesson has been edifying through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashim Yahushai. And, like I say, it's close. It's close. But I pray this lesson was edifying through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashim Yahushai. And it's on to the next one, Lord willing. Shalom.